Hello. I don't know how many people are going to see this. Um, I wish it could reach the multitude. But I wanted to kind of make a video in regards to twin flame, soulmate, and the narcissist. Because I watched a video where the title of it was talking about, again, it was twin flame soulmate reading, that they were talking about, the narcissists, they can change, or can they, and kind of the reader kind of hinted to the fact that, it is possible for a narcissist to change, and she kind of put in her own personal experience, thinking that, and saying how also, even despite what science says, that these people can change, that, they believe that, God or the universe can put their hand upon somebody, if they hit rock bottom and they figure out, that how they've been behaving was, wrong, and, and that there is some hope for some of these people can change. And then, of course, she put in that you should walk away from them or leave them alone, not entangle yourself with them, kind of, unless they come into this awareness. And then, of course, it's up to you whether or not you want to deal again. And kind of hinted that, that this is a divine counterpart, this is your twin flame, and that, so obviously, even if they are a narcissist, maybe they can change. And right away, I was like, no, 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 no. Like, even as far as my own readings, I try to be very careful, because you're looking at a bunch of paper cards with words on them or with meanings on them. And sometimes you'll have the lovers come out, or two of cups, or yes, this is your soulmate, and all this kind of stuff. And you'll see deceptive cards. And again, some people are not even aware of their own childhood wounding and their own tendency to show up in a certain way that is self-sabotatory, or aligning themselves in relationships with people that are destructive, toxic, abusive, again, because they're not even realizing the role that they play in regards to engaging with these types of people. Um, it's and unless a person has an awareness of their own tendency to be codependent, thinking that they can love and heal someone into becoming a better person, and again, and tolerating a lot of bullshit, lying, cheating, financial abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and sometimes physical. Okay? Let me start by saying this. A person who has full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, these people cannot and do not ever change. It is ingrained in who they are, either due to nature, nurture, or a combination of both. Okay? People that develop this order, it can very well be genetic. Scientists don't know. Okay? But it also, the environment that these people grow up in plays a huge part in how this disorder can manifest. Now, again, narcissistic personality disorder, it's on a spectrum, from just exhibiting, some of the traits, to moving towards, sociopathic. Now, again, and unless a person goes to a psychologist and gets diagnosed, a lot of people are walking around with psychological issues that even they don't know that they have. Okay? And again, so can the person on the other side of the coin, the person who engages with this type of person, and that's why they're drawn to each other. The narcissist and the codependent, each person serving to not only feed psychological childhood woundings that they might not even be aware of. They're just addicted to the toxicity, to the drama, because it's all that they know. Again, what did love look like to me as a child? Some narcissists can become narcissists not through abuse and neglect, but from over coddling, putting them up on a pedestal. These are the more grandiose types, okay? And then you have the victim narcissist, which is really almost like the more dangerous one because they come across as, the victim, the wounded one, the one that came from the broken home. But in the meantime, they're behaving in the same way that one of their parents probably behaved, seeking out a partner who exhibits the behavior patterns of what the other partner behaved as. Like with my situation, this person grew up with a narcissistic father and a codependent mother. Therefore, they are a product of their environment. Now, I mistook that situation as this person was, the wounded one, the victim, the victim of circumstance. I didn't see that I too was dealing with someone who had the disorder. Okay? Now, this can be a very dangerous line in regards to the advice that you give to people when you do tarot readings. Because again, when something comes up on a card and you put the title of being that this person is your twin flame or your soulmate, I don't give a shit if it's a twin flame or a soulmate or not. If you're dealing with a narcissist that is harmful to your health and your well-being, do not cling to that person or use that title in order to as an excuse to stay in something like that. Because again, victims of narcissistic abuse are usually codependents, and they don't even realize that they are codependent. They're just overly giving, overly sensitive, thinking they can love and heal and whatever. And again, it's a very dangerous, it's a very dangerous thing to tell someone who, again, who might not even be aware of their own codependent nature, that yes, the narcissist that you were involved in, they are your divine counterpart. They are your twin flame, because that will set off wheels in motion that you don't want to do, because that person is a love devotee. They might cling on to that title as a reason to go back into something that, again, could be detrimental to their health and well-being. Now, because again, everybody's looking for their twin flame. Everybody's looking for their soulmate. And if somebody tells them that the narcissist was their twin flame, they might very well put themselves in danger and go back into that situation because, the tarot reader told me that, or it said it on a card. No. Know what you're dealing with. Now, could there be people that are extremely selfish, that have come from broken homes or environments, and they've spent their whole life being, fuck boys or fuck girls, or again, using people as means to an end and lying and cheating and whatever, and can somehow hit rock bottom after multiple failed experiences, or they just, shit just finally blew up where they had to look in themselves. And if they have the ability to self-reflect, if they have the ability of of being able to have empathy for other people, can those people change? It depends. It depends on their own self-awareness. It depends on their own diagnosis from a professional therapist. Again, because just like with many other medical things, you can have a lot of symptoms that are similar but fall into different diseases. Same thing with narcissistic traits. People who have borderline personality disorder also have symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, again, because it falls on a spectrum with cluster B personality types, and depending on what you're dealing with and their level of psychosis, can that person change? Again, it depends on the individual, depends on where they fall on the spectrum. But just like an alcoholic or a drug addict, the likelihood of nothing ever happening again after they come into some self-awareness is small. It will be a constant struggle day to day of having to keep themselves in check from falling into their usual pattern of behavior, which is a defense mechanism that they developed in childhood to deal with their own circumstance. But a person who is a full-blown narcissist, these people don't see anything wrong with their behavior. They have zero empathy. They have zero desire or ability to self-reflect and to hold themselves accountable and be willing to work on themselves and change. There is a huge difference. And you, as a reader and as a person who goes to somebody for spiritual advice, the majority of people that are going to a general reading are listening to what that reader is saying and taking that as bond because it's coming from spirit, obviously. And the card said, yes, this is my soulmate or this is my twin flame. But again, unless you know what people are dealing with, I feel a bit irresponsible as a person who guides people through their hardships in life to guarantee or to make a statement, whereas, forget about what science says. I believe that, that if this person comes into some awareness that, God or the universe is and can somehow heal this person. That's like saying that God can come in and heal a schizophrenic. It's a mental disorder. And again, depending on where people fall on a spectrum, that will highly affect their ability to somewhat curb their tendencies. But again, it's not an easy road, just like again with an alcoholic or a person who's a drug addict. It's a consistent day-to-day effort to not fall off the wagon, to constantly be going to therapy, to constantly again, and if a person has the ability to be self-aware, not that narcissists aren't self-aware, they fully know what they're doing, they just don't give a shit. They know when they're using somebody as a means to an end, as a place to live, or they're constantly lying and cheating. Otherwise, if they were so oblivious, they wouldn't go to such extremes to cover their tracks, right? These people are highly manipulative and self-serving, and it can be very destructive for anybody who gets involved with these people. I developed CPTSD from my experience, and there are people that are in these situations that are getting their ass kicked every day. It's no joke. It's no joke. And you cannot throw out a statement like twin flame, soulmate, this is a divine union, and somehow this person's going to see the error of their ways, and God is going to come in and heal this person, and it's all smooth sailing from then on. Again, depending on what you're dealing with and depending on what that person's real issues are. They could just be extremely selfish and self-serving and have some narcissistic traits, but with the desire to change and consistently going to therapy and working on their stuff, it could be a relationship that is doable, but again, isn't guaranteed to be, smooth sailing, because people are who they are due to years of conditioning. Think how hard it is for you to change something. Imagine somebody that has become so psychologically wounded that they developed a disorder or behavior pattern that was extremely selfish and hurtful to other people. And like I says, it's not that some people can't change. Depends on what their problem is and how deep that goes. And people that have psychosis, it's not something that any miracle of a hand can come down and cure, because their brain has been wired a certain way that they either have to be on medication, like a schizophrenic, to try to curb, the invisible people from showing up and we stop having conversations with them, people that aren't there, or people with borderline personality. They have to constantly, but again, it takes that person to be self-aware of their own shit, because most narcissists refuse to believe anything is wrong with them, or they simply don't care. They don't desire to change, because why should they? If they can keep finding gullible people and doormats who will, pay their way through life, or who they can use and take advantage of, they see nothing wrong with doing that. Hey, if they were stupid enough to fall for it, I'm going to keep finding, because there's a sucker born every minute, as P.T. Barnum says. Again, that's why when I do my readings, I try to be very careful in regards to the guidance that I give people, because again, people look to you as someone with some sense of spiritual awareness beyond what they have. And if you're delivering a message of what you see in a card, they might take that as, truth. And again, it's a general reading. And even still, I don't think you should be going to, when dealing with people that are personality type disordered or people that have been abusive and all this stuff, I wouldn't rely too much on a paper card or somebody who has, no deeper understanding of the psychological aspect. That's why I also incorporate psychology, what I know in psychology, my own personal experience as far as being a victim of abuse since childhood, whether that was sexual abuse or around narcissists, my own codependent behavior, because it's a learned behavior to put up with people that treat you like shit, that you have to come into an awareness of that you even have that problem. It starts with you. You have to recognize your own shit before you take on anybody else's or think you can heal someone else or whatever, because you can't. And she made that point too, which is, I'm glad she did, because you can't. And it's not your job to heal or save or whatever. And it's not your job to let somebody drag you through the mud because it's a soulmate or a twin flame. I don't give a shit what title that a paper card puts on what somebody is. Okay, even if spirit kicked that card out or I was intuitive, how does that person treat you and how does that person affect you? That is what you should be following, because you will get a lot of people who are addicted in that cycle unless you have been through it. And I'm sorry, like I feel like I'm going to cry, because unless you have been through that, please don't advise anybody to go back into something like that, because there are people that are truly, truly suffering, and they suffer long after it because they have been left so psychologically scarred from that experience. And yes, that could have been a soulmate, but it's a karmic soulmate. And even if it's your twin flame, if that person incarnated here and maybe things were supposed to go a different way, but once you're in this human body and you go through your experiences, maybe somebody turned out a little bit more cracked than they were supposed to be. And that could be your twin flame, but you know what? Love them from a distance. Do not put yourself in any kind of harm's way because of anything that a tarot card says. You have to protect yourself. And I try to do that with every reading that I do. When I see those deception cards come up and all that, that's why I even created my own deck where I have cards that clearly state you might be dealing with somebody with a personality disorder, because there isn't cards usually that say that. You have the Seven of Swords, you'll have the Five of Swords that signify that. But I made a deck because I wanted people to also have the option to have a card come out that says, no, you're dealing with somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder or some other cluster B person thing. Because again, the more you know, the better that you do. And a lot of people are involved with people that have psychosis that aren't even aware that they have psychosis. And they aren't even, again, aware of their own psychosis, which attracts people with psychosis to them. Again, it's a cycle. It's a cycle that people need to get themselves out of. Self-awareness is key. What is my wounding? What causes me to lack self-respect, self-love, boundaries, which is what most of these karmic relations are meant to teach you about, especially when dealing with selfish, self-serving, narcissistic types. Now, again, narcissistic type can fall on a spectrum from just simply having these traits that can, be worked on and changed if that person finally gets tired of their own shit or hits rock bottom or whatever. And then you have on the other side of the spectrum where this person doesn't give a flying fuck about you and anybody else that they hurt, as long as they serve their own agenda and serve their own interests. They do not care. And they will never change because, again, it's a psychological disorder. And depending on the varying degree that that person has that disorder, gives you a little idea of a person's capability to change. And throwing some kind of spiritual thing on there, thinking of somehow, somebody will miraculously cure someone of a psychosis, depending on, again, the degree of that they have it, is taking a big risk in regards to guiding people. Because again, a lot of people will cling on to that title of soulmate or twin flame and put themselves in situations that'll end up killing them slowly over time or in reality, depending on the type of person that they've been dealing with. Again, you have some narcissists that are on the low end of the spectrum that are extremely violent, and if it's and that's almost like the Catholic Church telling people that they don't get a divorce even if your husband cheats and lies and abuses you. You made a vow. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Do what is in your best and what's going to keep you mentally, physically, and emotionally sane, sound, healthy, protected, regardless of a title that a paper card or a tarot reader tells you is the person that you're dealing with. God, the universe, cares about you and your well-being. And the whole point of this journey is not about the woo-woo. The soulmate, the twin flame is not the goal. The goal is for you to come here per your soul agreements, work through karma that you brought in from past lifetimes to learn that lesson so you don't have to repeat it in future lifetimes. And again, reason, season, lifetime people. Okay? Not every soulmate is meant to be a life partnership. Some, again, are just karmic, meant to teach you about self-love, self-respect, and boundaries. Don't cling to a title to keep you in any situation that is hurtful to your well-being. That is just, and I felt the need to say that because as a victim of narcissistic abuse, more than once, each one progressively worse than the previous, because again, I needed to learn about boundaries, self-love, self-respect, to not chase, to not beg for love, someone to love me or to treat me right, or to sit there hoping, wishing, and dreaming for that person to change or to wake up, because again, I needed to learn that I needed to love me more than I loved that person. That was the lesson. That was the karma that I brought in from a previous life, which also I was abused in, because I had someone go into my Akashic records and see what karma that I brought into this life. And for me, the biggest one for me was to not tolerate abuse of any kind from anyone. And considering that from the age of 3 all the way through my adult years, I have been constantly dealing with abusive types due to my empathetic and giving and kind nature, I needed to learn to not be a fucking doormat and allow people to treat me like shit because whatever reason. Like I says, don't let titles fool you. Don't let false obligations in regards to religion fool you or keep you in anything that is detrimental to your well-being. And again, depending on what you are dealing with, is going to play a big role in a person's ability to change. But when you throw in the title narcissist, a lot of people use that title in a way to describe people that just have narcissistic or vanity traits or again, whatever. But someone with a full-blown narcissistic personality disorder is a whole nother ballgame. Again, it's not a matter of just being selfish and self-serving and vain and cheating and whatever. But you have the ability to, again, at some point when you hit rock bottom, perhaps self-reflect and be willing to put in the work. But again, it's a constant effort to not slip and to fall back into old behavior patterns because, again, it's ingrained into people's self, especially depending on what age they are when they come into this awareness. Again, you can't expect somebody who's 50 years old, who's been showing up that way for 50 years, to all of a sudden be cured and miraculously everything's great because they realize they've been an asshole. And again, and I always feel a sense of duty as being a person who offers guidance to people to make sure that knowing that I'm doing a general reading, knowing that I don't know people's personal circumstances are, or the psychological profile of whoever they were dealing with, or even what their psychological profile is. I would never, you know, tell a person who has codependent tendencies to, like, wait, the narcissist, when he comes back and tells you that he's changed, believe him. Because again, they lie. They love to hoover. They love to come back around to see if they can, pick off the bones. And again, and people will find themselves falling into another cycle of abuse because they believe the narcissist when he says, I've changed, or I've realized the errors of my ways. Some narcissists will actually study narcissistic personality disorder just so they can further be knowledgeable on what not to show so they can hide it more. They even fool therapists because these people are very skilled at manipulation, and they go to any means necessary to keep that mask on and to keep people from seeing their true motives and intentions and what they really are. They can be highly destructive individuals. And again, I try to be very careful in regards to putting a label of a twin flame and a soulmate on somebody who has true narcissistic personality disorder. Because even if that person was that on the spiritual level, the universe would never expect you to endure in any kind of suffering just because of a title. This journey is about you and your healing, and you cannot heal if you're dealing with somebody who's only there to fucking break you. This is just, that's why I always tell everybody, please, please, please use discernment. Know what you're dealing with, and even especially know your own wounding, because unless you become self-aware to guard yourself from falling back into your own tendencies of being too giving, too loving, too doting, too doormatty, too whatever, you putting up with a lot of shit because you love somebody. Again, you got to love your damn self first and foremost. Never waver on that. And if somebody isn't showing you that they love you and they respect you and they honor you, and if they have you jumping through hoops and chasing them and sacrificing your integrity and your self-worth in order to make their fucking life easy and comfortable, that is not a person that you want to be around. I don't give a shit who they are. And I tell that to everybody. Know what you're dealing with. And I would hope that any tarot reader, regardless of whatever personal experience they feel they might have, you are talking to an audience that you don't know everybody's personal story, and you have to be very careful with the advice that you give, because you could be leading people back into situations that will completely destroy them because they're believing what you say as a person who is somehow more spiritually involved or has a connection to the divine where you can channel messages and give advice. Because again, it's something that I get very nervous about it when I do my readings. That's why anyone who's watched my readings knows that I always make it perfectly clear to know what you're dealing with, because you better believe narcissists will keep coming back around as long as you let them, saying that they've changed, promising you the world, and delivering the same shit over and over and over again. And some people have been in this cycle with these people for decades, and having kids with them, and just dealing with nightmarish situation that has them physically, emotionally, and mentally just broken. And if you develop post-traumatic stress, and you can't, it says again, there are so many levels to this subject matter that it's not even possible to cover it all here. There's a responsibility I feel that I have to anyone that comes to me for guidance. Seek out a professional, go talk to someone as far as dealing with your own stuff, so that you can better protect yourself, so you can stand strong, so that you can love yourself and respect yourself and never settle for less than. Because again, a lot of people have been conditioned to be a fucking dumping ground for somebody else's bullshit. And they allow it because they don't feel that they deserve anything more, because it's all they know. It's conditioning, and it's karmic, and it's something that person is needing to overcome. And the people that are embodying narcissistic traits, the people that lie, that cheat, that use, or whatever, they got their own shit that they need to overcome. Some of them can, some of them will, most of them won't. And that's why, again, please know what you're dealing with. Please don't just, think that, oh, this person said they're my twin flame and soulmate, but it's also the narcissist and they can come back and change. Please, 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 people, I beg of you, go with what you know, or at least educate yourself. Educate yourself on this disorder. And again, these people all, it's like they all do the same thing. You go into forums and you see all these victims of narcissistic abuse telling their story, and it's like everybody's talking about the same shit because, again, it's a behavior pattern. You can listen to each person's story and it sounds like yours because, again, they all operate from the same handbook. It's a person that I could recommend, that I learned a lot, and boy, his stuff made me angry because when he was talking and describing, he's a narcissist who was forced to go into therapy. He's actually written a bunch of books. His name is HD Tutor. And there's I think his Twitter account is called Narcissist Me. I will leave a link to his stuff. Also, Sam Veknin. And there's another person who helps people who have codependency issues deal with narcissists. Again, this is another psychologist. Sam Veknin isn't a psychologist, but he's a person with narcissistic personality disorder, and he educates people on the disorder. Okay. And that HD Tutor guy, let me tell you, and even the way that he describes the shit these people do and the extreme joy that they get out of other people's suffering, I tell you, it's enough to make you want to, you get angry. But again, it's a fucking reality check that a lot of people need because we want to wear rose-colored glasses. We want to find our soulmate, or we want this person to love us and treat us right. And again, we just keep setting ourselves up to be fucked over time and time again. Educate yourself on this disorder. Educate yourself on how these people operate, what things that they do. And again, I bet you if you look at that HD Tutor stuff, every single article that he wrote about stuff that he did was stuff that I can relate to, again, because they all do the same shit. And again, depending on what you're dealing with and the level of narcissism that this person has, is that's going to be the deciding factor on whether or not this person can change. And again, it depends on the person and the level of their psychosis. And don't let a title of a twin flame or a soulmate keep you in an abusive situation. I'm sorry, but the hand of God will not cure somebody with a psychosis. Medication, therapy, this is how these people go day to day just to get through their life, to curb their impulses. And most narcissists would never even admit that they got a problem and would never even go to therapy. And even if they did, it's only as a last resort, and they're very good at manipulating even therapists, fooling therapists, because again, some of them will actually study narcissistic personality disorder, and they'll know what behaviors to kind of move away from. So again, to pull the wool over people's eyes. It's a very, and especially with the gaslighting, it's psychologically damaging to anyone who's involved with these people. So again, I felt the need to say something. I'm going to leave the links below to the people that I spoke about that help to educate people on narcissistic personality disorder, both from being a codependent and dealing with these types of people, and also from a narcissist point of view, and the things that they do and why they do it and how they feel about it, which is generally they don't feel shit. They don't care. You're a means to an end, and if you're a sucker enough to believe in their bullshit and to tolerate it, and then as soon as you start to wake up and have boundaries and stand up for yourself, then you get discarded and they're on to the next one that they can use, abuse, abandon, and fool, and whatever. This is what they do. And like I said, in the likelihood of anybody who truly has that personality disorder somehow miraculously being cured and changing is next to none. Take it from narcissists themselves who actually are in therapy. And they're just going through the motions because they've been ordered to do so, but they still feel the way that they do. They still think what they think, and they're perfectly aware of what they do. They just don't care. They just don't care because they lack the ability to have empathy due to their own wounding, which again, they could have grown up in an abusive situation. They could have grown up in a situation where they were put on a pedestal, told they were the next Messiah. Again, an ego complex. It depends on what end of the spectrum that this person falls on, is how they're going to show up and how they're going to use and manipulate and do whatever they got to do. Whether they try to climb to the top, use status and celebrity and whatever, or you have the victim one who's always, the real sheep in wolf's clothing, because they're always playing the woe is me card and not doing anything to change their life, just mooching. That's why I call these hobosexuals people that keep entering into relationships, because they're just looking to get taken care of. They're looking for their mother, because most of them have mother issues. And their fathers are probably narcissists, and again, they're embodying the traits of the father and looking for a partner who's like the mother, who's going to put up with it. Again, because we imitate what we see. So please educate yourself. Please don't be fooled by titles on cards. Please don't let religion keep you in marriages or things like that. Again, love yourself first. Do what is in your highest and best and what's going to keep you safe and sound from the multitude of predators and agendas and conditioning that you've been bombarded with since you came into this existence. Self-awareness, wisdom is key to survival in this fucking place. Because I tell you, it is dog eat dog out here. This is hell. The 3D is hell. You have the mixture of it's a spiritual war that's going on. You have the light and the dark duking it out here in the 3D, which is why many people come here and incarnate here to go through all this stuff as a way to expand in their soul, to move beyond the 3D into the higher dimensions. But you got to come here and go through the shit first, right? Not to say that there's probably isn't shit that goes on up there, but it's probably a lot less than it is here. The 3D is where you have the real good and evil doing battle. And sometimes that good and evil is even the battle that we're having within ourselves. And these are the many lessons that we're coming here to learn in regards to ourselves, other people, and the way that this world works, and our own spiritual paths, and why we're here, and the roles that people play in our lives. And deconditioning ourselves, again, from the conditioning that's been put upon us since you came into this world, whether it's through your family, through religion, through corporations trying to sell you shit, through the government, I can go on and on. You're constantly being told what to think, how to be, all this stuff, and all of it is based in bullshit. Humans just trying to figure out their own place in the world. May you find the wisdom that you seek within yourself, because it lies nowhere else that isn't a hoax, a scam, or a lie. And that's what you're surrounded with in this place. Wisdom. Measure your success through your freedom of conditioning. And remember that most people, what they believe it because they were told to believe it, not because it's true. So whenever you're going to gurus or tarot readers or what have you, everybody's looking at life through their own lens, through their own experiences, through their own wisdom. And even then, we may know some things, but we don't know everything. But what I do know is, to thine own self be true. And don't let anybody or any cards or anything put you on a path that is not going to be happy or fulfilling or safe for you. And when dealing with psychologically disordered people, you better know what you're dealing with. So hopefully, like I said, and I don't mean to offend any other readers, but I I freaked out when I saw that title and the hint that these people can change, because again, people throw that term narcissist around to describe certain behavior patterns. But again, it goes much deeper than just somebody who lies and cheats and who, acts up here or there or goes through a dark patch in their life and their soul. Again, some people have the ability to change and grow. It depends. And those people probably aren't full blown narcissists. They might have some of those traits, or they just might have some wounding that caused them to behave the way that they did. But people that are truly psychologically disordered, they cannot change. Some have to be on medication for life, or some of them just refuse any kind of treatment or therapy and just wreak havoc no matter where they go. And they'll never even address their own behavior because, again, they don't care. So, I feel like I need a drink. I don't even drink. I felt so like, again, it's a very dangerous line. And when you're in a place where people are coming to you for guidance, you have to be careful with the advice that you give. Because again, you don't know people's personal situations. And a lot of people, again, aren't even aware of their own problems, their own tendencies to invite this kind of shit into their life. And until they heal that part of themselves, they will continue to attract these abusive people or people that take advantage or what have you. Again, but some of these situations can become life-threatening. So it's very, you got to be careful. You got to be careful in regards to what you tell people or how you guide people. It's a, I don't know, I feel a sense of duty to give people the best advice that I can give them, but always tell them too, you have to use discernment. You know what you're dealing with. I don't. I'm doing a tarot reading and it's a general reading. I can't, you know what I mean? Please, people have to really take an honest look at themselves and again, and know what you're dealing with before you go following any advice on any monthly tarot read. Because again, it's general. It's not, it's, again, a title on a card doesn't mean that you have to be hooked to that person for life. Yeah, it's a soulmate, but it's a karmic soulmate. Maybe you just meant to learn a lesson and move the fuck on. Not sit around waiting for them and not welcome them back if they come back. Again, it depends on what you're dealing with and what their issues are. And how people are aware of their own shit and who's willing to do the work and evolve and change and grow. And just be careful. Because like I said, because narcissists are highly skilled manipulators. And they will come back around if they think they can get something out of you. If they're looking for a new place to live, or they're looking to come back to the old reliable, someone who they can say everything that person's been waiting to hear, thinking that'll be enough to get them back in the door, and they'll start the shit all over again. The person that I loved, their mother stayed in that situation until it killed her. And I feel sorry for him. My heart goes out to him because I seen it firsthand. I know what he came from, but I also know the issues that he has. And whether or not he can change or whatever, I don't know. He won't even admit that he has what he has. This is what I'm talking about. So it's just, like I says, it's a very dangerous line that we walk as tarot readers advising people. And I do try my best to advise people in a way that I feel is not going to be detrimental to their well-being, especially when dealing with psychosis or possible psychosis. Because again, I have not diagnosed this person that they're dealing with. I don't know people's personal lives or what have you. So who am I to say, oh yeah, the card says this person's going to change, so, take them back. Again, please keep yourselves safe. And I send you all my love And again, no throwing no shade to any other readers, but I really hope that people take a little bit more care in regards to how they advise people and the titles that they put on their videos or the titles that they give to people that, a true blown narcissist. It's like, I really, but again, I probably am repeating and repeating. Can you tell that even the subject matter triggers my CPTSD? This is the lingering effect of what dealing with these kind of situations has on people. That's something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my days. And I do get triggered, and again, it's not just so cut and dry. It's not just so cut and dry when dealing with personality disordered people and the effects that it can have on you dealing with them. So again, please take care. And again, no shade to anybody else. People are just speaking again from their own perspective, but may not even realize that perhaps the person that they were talking about, might have had just those traits, but wasn't a full-blown narcissist, again, because it falls in a spectrum. And some people, again, have the ability to change and self-reflect if they hit rock bottom, but some people don't. And you just got to be careful. You just got to know what you're dealing with, and you got to be careful what you advise people to do and the titles that you put on people, because again, you got a lot of people that are codependent that will cling on to that title and put themselves in harm's way just because, or cling on to, again, what the pastor at the church told them, well, we don't believe in divorce, so you have to stay in this, which is what happened to the person that I love's mother. They said, no, because you're Catholic, you can't divorce. And so eventually, her children suffered, creating children who have disorders, and it eventually killed her. So again, don't let religion or titles on cards or whatever keep you in any situation that is detrimental to your well-being. And on that note, take care, my lovelies. Bye-bye.